This podcast may contain explicit language. You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling. Inception is next. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, the show that uses a unique grading style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
And I'm Dana Duncan. Or am I a dream? Or maybe a nightmare?
And to most people, you still apparently look like Patton Oswalt because we got yet another comment on TikTok.
Yeah, okay.
About an hour ago.
Yeah.
Just keeps happening. Maybe one day we'll enter you in a Patton Oswalt look-alike contest, if there is such a thing.
Well, we could have our own.
I suppose we could get him involved, see if he'd be willing to do it. Maybe he's like really goofy that way. I don't know. It could happen. Stranger things have happened.
Yep.
Tonight, we discuss one of my personal 3 favorite films, with Christopher Nolan's Inception celebrating its 15th anniversary, written and directed by Christopher Nolan, cinematography by Wally Pfister, music by Hans Zimmer, starring Leonardo DiCaprio as Dom Cobb, Ken Watanabe as Saito, Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Arthur, Marion Cotillard as Mal, Elliot Page, at the time was known as Ellen Page, as Ariadne, Tom Hardy as Eames, Cillian Murphy as Robert Fisher, Tom Berenger as Peter Browning, Michael Caine as Stephen Miles, Dileep Rao as Yusuf, Lucas Haas as Nash, Tallulah Riley as a woman, credited also as Blonde, and Pete Postlethwaite as Maurice Fisher. Of course, we can't do this alone. Even if it is one of my favorite movies of all time, we've got to round out Dana not knowing what the fuck this movie was about, and so we bring back a returning celebrity guest, the creator of Boss Locks Media and the host of the Working While Black Show, making his 6th appearance on the show to date. Please welcome back Walter Gaynor.
Thank you. I come back with the trophy. It doesn't fit all the way on my head because I can't wear hats, but I got it hanging up. Greatest movie of all time. Happy to be back.
See, these hats are supposed to be one size fit all, and yet, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm one of a kind, a unicorn of cabezas. But yeah, a problem I've been fighting my whole life, but I love hats. So I have another one I can't wear that I have hanging up too.
So next time, send him the Gmote sombrero.
Brero.
There we go.
I'm still pushing for the Gmote bandana so we can look like Willie Nelson.
Well, for our next Black History Month, we can be really appropriating and do Gmote do-rags.
Could all do wave checks.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't know how to wear one. I'd probably put it on the wrong... It'd be like hanging off my ear.
We'll do a whole tutorial on the podcast. We got to watch a Spike Lee movie. He'd be so mad.
We'll do Malcolm X and do do-rags.
There we go.
I mean, isn't it enough that uncool white guys try to assimilate or take control of black culture enough as it is?
I mean,
we stole their music, we steal their art. That's enough.
We can't steal their rhythm. That's
There's
the one
more,
thing that's
there's
uniquely
more to
them.
steal. You got to think big.
Yeah.
Anyway, Inception is a movie of, let's say, a very dear personal relationship for me. I very distinctly remember watching this in the theater, I believe on the night that it came out. So this would have been, gosh, I guess it came out on July 8th. So yeah, I would have seen it either July 8th or July 9th, that opening weekend, and we're recording this on July 9th. And I remember being absolutely wowed. It was one of the best single cinema experiences I've ever had. I loved everything about this movie. I remember walking out and saying, I'm not sure I caught everything. So I definitely had to watch it several more times before I really felt like I got a handle on everything that was going on in the movie. And there's really the simple part of the story, kind of the heist aspect of what's going on in the film, the very basic plot progression that has to do with Fisher. And then there's the more nuanced kind of time healing wounds kind of aspect to the B plot, if you will, that has more to do with Elliot Page and DiCaprio's characters and how they progress through the story as well. And so with the layering and the complicated nature of the narrative with this, I think this was really the first one, at least for me, because even though I had seen The Prestige, I had not yet seen Memento at this point. This was the first time for me where I got an experience with, I guess, what is the signature thing for Christopher Nolan, which is this playing with narrative and time and linear progression. So I then remember seeing it for the second time when I was in college, and at the University of La Crosse, they would have regular movie nights. Like every other week, they would show like a new release. And for whatever reason, they got a hold of this one just as it was coming out on like DVD or Blu-ray or whatever else. So, of course, I went and watched it with everybody else in this big auditorium. And I remember getting to the final scene and knowing what was coming, where it cuts to black right as the top is starting to topple a little bit. And everybody in this collective, oh, what the fuck moment. So that was also very special to me. So I have a lot of fond memories of watching this movie for the first few times. I know that it doesn't necessarily appeal to everybody. And given the library or the oeuvre of Christopher Nolan, certainly he has a lot of great films. And this isn't on the top of everybody's list, but it's right up there for my personal favorites, even if I don't know if it necessarily breaks the... It's definitely not in the top 2 for me of his films, but it's in the conversation for top 3, top 4. So, Dad, I think this is only your second time seeing it.
You tried showing it to me in bits and pieces over several different time frames. So I think I actually probably saw most of it the first time in bits and pieces as you were watching it. And I just happened to come in the room and sit down for a while. Then you made me watch it from beginning to end. Now I've watched it again.
Okay, Dad, do you like this film?
No. Do I dislike this film? No. But it, to me, it seems a lot like the cinematic version of the guy who did the like performance art and then took and put a banana and put it on the wall with a piece of duct tape. Because I think Nolan just tries to create take a typical heist film type thing and create some layered thing over it with, to make it more sci-fi and make it more enticing to certain elements of society. And that's just his way of doing it. He has so many great films. I mean, the first film that I really saw of his and I was absolutely enthralled with was The Prestige. This doesn't even come close. I was bored by this half the time because it's just so many things going on to try to convince you that this is so deep and thought-provoking when it's really not that deep and thought-provoking.
Well, stay tuned for next week where we review Tenet.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I have not seen that. And based on your statements, I'm not sure I want to.
If you think this is Christopher Nolan going full Christopher Nolan on himself, like just complete masturbation, wait till you see Tenet.
This is light work compared.
Even our good dear friend, Andrew, basically says you have to turn off your brain and not think about it at all in order to enjoy the movie.
Man, that movie was something else. I watched it on my phone in a hotel because I forgot why we we were stuck somewhere, and so I was just trying to find a little sliver of joy. I was like, Tenet, it's on Apple TV. I could rent it for a few dollars. Let me sit down and watch this, get a little joy back. And after I was like, what the hell Beyonce? But this movie was something else. I feel like this could go on a list of top espionage movies. Maybe not the best, but it could be in the list.
I think this is one of the most polarizing modern films that we have. There are people that absolutely love it. There are people that absolutely hate it. And there are very few people in between.
I'm in that in between. I can appreciate it for the quality that it is and how well it's done and the acting involved and the thought that Nolan put into it. But I still don't appreciate it as far as the story and what it really says.
Okay.
This is going to be a good grading. This will be a very interesting episode.
I tried to be as fair as I could, taking into account that my own personal bias should not apply, that I would grade it based upon the objective nature of it and its impact on society and as far as the quality of the film and the production itself. So I'm not going to trash it when it comes numbers. Is it going to get higher marks from me? No, because I have a very retarded or limited thought process as far as overall grading.
Honestly, we've been looking for a movie where I'm really high on it or you're really high on it and the other one of us goes the opposite direction. So I'm going to be very glad to dig into this. But before we get too much further, and I don't want to skip over Walt, what is your relationship to Inception?
I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of memories like of what was going on in my life watching this movie, so I don't have any real relation to it. But I do remember afterwards being one of the people be like, I don't know what I just saw, but it was amazing. And then I know we'll get to talk about it later on, but just certain things, just questioning like, did it mean this or did it mean that? So I actually love the whole concept, how they delivered the movie, everything about it, and rewatching it. This is my second time watching it, and rewatching it, I wasn't disappointed. There's even moments where like, oh, I remember this one scene at the end, so I know this is going to happen or that's not going to happen, but I was still hooked. So yeah, I enjoyed it then, enjoy it now. Something I could probably watch again, just not super soon.
All right. So I think Walt is in between us because we have Dana who said he was bored by the film. And we have me who every time I watch it, I seem to cry at the end.
That ending. Oh man.
I was looking at you wondering why you were crying, and I was kind of going, did one of the dogs step on your foot?
No.
Okay.
I just have a very profound cathartic reaction to the ending.
Okay. I can tell you one of the things that really bothers me about this film. I can bring it up now or I can talk about it later.
We're in between topics, so go ahead.
Okay. It's making the whole concept of the subconscious into a lot more than it really is. Okay. Do you know what most of your subconscious thought is? Habit. Your subconscious drives your car. Do you think about how much pressure you put on the gas pedal, or how you turn the steering wheel, or when you apply the brake, how much pressure in order to stop? That's muscle memory, which is part of your subconscious. Your habits are your subconscious, and that's the largest portion of your subconscious. So when, making it into this mysterious, wild thing is way beyond what really it is. That's just me.
See, I don't have nearly that same problem, which obviously you could tell by the fact that I love this movie. By the standpoint of, I think there are metaphysical things that exist outside of the body, one being the mind. So I think it's a larger concept to mine and explore than just the limited how it interacts with our physical selves. But also, I believe the soul exists outside of the body that controls kind of the emotional aspect of how you interact with the world as well. And so both of those are able to exist even beyond our physical form. But now we're getting into the like really philosophical stuff that is my corner of the thing. So at this point, I'm perfectly comfortable letting you lead the show if you would wish to host for a week.
Well, I have one
Since
other note, actually.
I'm gonna wax poetic the whole time.
Well, let me just put it this way. So you're telling me that if you're tying the subconscious to the soul, you're telling me that my soul.
No. I'm tying it to the larger mind that exists outside of the body. That the mind has a larger concept that exists beyond just what it is in our physical reactions. The soul exists separate of the mind. They can interact, but I think they're separate entities.
Okay, so somehow or another, my soul is tied to some dream that I'm having that I'm going out of the house without pants on.
Your mind is tied to that. But yes.
Okay, so maybe that's what my idea of heaven is, running around without pants.
I mean, based on your horny old man comments that you've made throughout the history of this show, yeah, that might be your heaven.
Horny old man comments. I've made those horny old man comments since I was like 15.
Okay, so you've been a horny old man for 50 years. What?
But still, that isn't the subconscious is only a small portion or what you're thinking of. I mean, yeah, there's a broader interpretation of the soul and all of that, but the mind and the cognitive mind and the subconscious are not tied to the soul. They're just reflections of the overall. And so I don't have as much thought or as much. I don't find the subconscious to be that much of an enticing topic.
We have come yet again to the famous rigidity issue between the two of us. You like to have very black and white rules. You exist in a very formulaic. That's why you like nonfiction so much. Whereas I always gravitate to fiction, the world that could be created only through imagination and the mind. And so this abstract concept is beyond your liking because it plays in playgrounds that you don't often like to play in.
I like to have playgrounds that I control, but that's another story. I took a cognitive or a mind evaluation back when I was 20, and I am in a rare breed. Most people are left-brained or right-brain dominant. Okay, I am frontal lobe dominant. I think in concrete terms, concrete creative and concrete logical. I do not think abstractly very well. I don't like abstract thought. It annoys me. The worst class I ever took in my entire life was political philosophy because it's stupid.
I love political philosophy.
It's so esoteric. It has no practical application.
No, I disagree.
Why would you want to bother?
I loved political and economic theory. Loved it.
When I took political theory, Hobbes, Machiavelli, they made sense.
Locke?
Montague, or Rousseau made no sense. At least Locke had some logical connection to reality.
Okay, well, so this doesn't become a two-man pod of us just trying to argue.
Yo, I was enjoying this. I'm like, oh man, this is so interesting watching this dynamic.
So
I think I really
those of you bingo cards who had Montague and Rousseau, check off.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's Montesquieu, but okay.
No, it's Montague.
Montague is the family from Romeo and Juliet.
I can pull out I still have all my books. I'll pull it out and show you.
It's Montesquieu.
Mm-hmm.
Montesquieu.
Montesquieu.
That's not how it's pronounced in French.
Okay, so now we're doing it based on the French pronunciation in this overly American show, but okay.
Okay, so then, cool. All right, so yes, we'll...
Murica. All right, are you going to host the show or am I?
No, I'll let you do it. Continue.
Okay, all right. So, what is this film about? Let's start with Dad.
I don't know. I mean, it's a heist film. That's ultimately what it is. It's couched in this dream world that's supposed to make you find it, like, wow, that's really artistic. I don't know. Well, that's about best I can do.
Okay. Not bad. I kind of figured you're going to go for the low-hanging fruit. Except I would make the point that it's an inverted heist film. They are not stealing anything in the movie. They are planting something. So it's an inverted heist film. Okay, that's first. 2, it's about the infectious nature of ideas, their germination, and how they define ourselves and our relationships. And if life is about the relationships that you keep, it's about the meaning of life.
Oh, you are deep.
I'm not saying that this movie is intended to be quite that deep, but that's how I take it. That's how I feel the movie. And that's why it has this major catharsis at the end of the movie, because you have all of these people being moved to redefine who they are in the world and their past relationships.
Go ahead, Walter, before I get into anything more, because
I
could keep going back and forth on this for a while.
I like that synopsis, Tom. Like, it just led me to think about just the concept of grief and guilt in relationships and how that alters things. Like Cobb's guilt of what happened. We didn't realize till the end it was guilt, but just of what happened, like that defined how he moved and affected everybody else in his life as well. And that's just probably playing into real life too. The things that guilt and grief can do to us and how it could warp us. That's a beautiful summary synopsis.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was very deep, just like this movie. It just goes deep within you and the subconscious and everything. So a lot of layers.
It's a plot summary within a plot summary within a plot summary.
Let me give you a good way to assess the deepness of anything. 2 guys are on a barn and the ladder falls and they can't figure out how they're going to get down. So they're looking around, and pretty soon the guy looks over and he sees his friend. He's down on the ground. He says, "How did you get down there?" He says, "Well, I jumped in that manure pile. It's only ankle deep." So the guy takes and says, "Okay." So he jumps in. It comes up to his head. He goes, he says, "I thought you said it was only ankle deep." Well, he says, "I drove in head first." So when you're talking about deep, it all depends on which direction you dive into the shit.
Well, I don't know. Either way, it's still deep, right? That's a crazy analogy.
Okay.
Data the Concrete Man.
So, some quick background on the movie. Inception was released on July 8th, 2010. This is the 15th anniversary. On a rough budget of $160 million, it grossed $828 million to finish at number 4 for the worldwide box office for 2010. Does anybody have any ideas what finished above it?
It wasn't Shutter Island, was it?
No.
And
where was I?
And again, this is the worldwide box office, not the domestic.
Yeah, I mean, it had to be a Pixar or Disney film.
So Avatar was the year before. And yes, you are correct. There is a Pixar film that we will be discussing next week that finished ahead of it. No. That would be the year before, in 2009.
Okay. The Incredibles?
Nope, that was 6 years prior.
A Pixar movie.
It was a sequel. I'll give you that hint.
Toy Story 2?
Nope. Toy Story 2 was 1999. This is 2010.
And I'm not sure.
Me neither.
So the number 1 film of the year was Toy Story 3.
3.
Wow.
One of 2 Disney billion-dollar grossers that year. The other was Johnny Depp and Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. That was number 2.
Wow.
Okay. Then you had number 3, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. And then this movie. So this was the number 4 film that year. But just reading off a quick top 13 or so, you had The King's Speech at 13, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader at 12, Clash of the Titans at 11, How to Train Your Dragon, the original one, at 10, Despicable Me at number 9, Tangled at 8, Iron Man 2 at 7, 6 was the Twilight Saga Eclipse, and then you had Shrek Forever After at 5.
Wow.
We thought we were sequel and kids movie heavy. Now, it doesn't look like it's really changed that much in 15 years.
Now I know why The King's Speech was so popular among my age group, because we didn't have that much interest in Disney or in Harry Potter or any of the Marvel movies.
I mean, Black Swan was number 16.
Which I enjoyed.
Since you brought it up before, Walt, Shutter Island is 22 for that year.
Really?
Yep. And actually, one of the films that we've already discussed on the show that we'll be revisiting in a couple of months, the film that most people thought was going to win Best Picture was The Social Network. And that was at 32, which I would not have guessed. I did not remember that. I remember that being like this somewhat of a sensation that everybody saw it, and not that The King's Speech finished almost 20 spots ahead of it at the worldwide box office.
2 reasons. One is The King's Speech was re-released after the Academy Awards, and I don't know whether the box office rating goes where that fits into the scheme. The other is that The Social Network had its life basically on HBO and streaming. No one that I knew of saw it, but then everybody saw it once it was released, and you could watch it streaming or on
This is so far back that streaming had not yet become a thing yet.
Okay.
I mean, it like barely. Netflix had just started becoming a thing, and this was about the era where the first of us were really starting to like find The Office on Netflix type of deal. But it didn't really take off as far as like original programming or big movies coming to streaming until 2012 or so, right about when, I want to say, what was the one show with Kevin Spacey?
House of Cards.
Yeah, House of Cards. That was like the first really big moment where streaming had a show on that you could only find on Netflix.
Then this would have been on DVD, and you could, your
Correct.
Family Video, your Blockbuster, etc. And I remember this being a big thing even in my office at the time, where you're talking about, hey, I rented this type of thing, you really should watch this. And it became a big thing that way.
Correct. Word of mouth was very heavy on The Social Network. And I think it still is, because if you're talking about movies that have lasted from this year, like Toy Story 3 is still living memory for most people. Inception, for the most part, and The Social Network. Like, those are the big 3, I think, from this year that a lot of people remember, unless they're like Harry Potter heads. So, while not all critics were high on the film, Inception was met with mostly positive critical praise at the time, while being included on many of the top critics' year-end top 10 lists. Inception received 8 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, Original Screenplay, Original Score, and Art Direction, and it won 4 Oscars for Best Visual Effects, Sound Editing, Sound Mixing, and Cinematography. In March 2011, the film was voted by BBC Radio 1 and BBC Radio 1 Extra listeners as their 9th favorite film of all time. In 2012, Inception was ranked the 35th best edited film of all time by the Motion Picture Editors Guild. In the same year, Total Film named it the most rewatchable film of all time. In 2014, Empire ranked Inception the 10th greatest film ever made on their list of the 301 greatest movies of all time, as voted by the magazine's readers, while Rolling Stone magazine named it as the 2nd best science fiction film since the turn of the century. Inception was ranked 84th on Hollywood's 100 favorite films list, a list compiled by The Hollywood Reporter in 2014, surveying, quote, studio chiefs, Oscar winners, and TV royalty. In 2016, Inception was voted the 51st best film of the 20th century by BBC, as picked by 177 film critics from around the world. The film was included in the Visual Effects Society's list of the most influential visual effects films of all time. In 2019, Total Film named Inception the best film of the 2010s. The film was included in Forbes magazine's list of the top 150 greatest films of the 21st century. In 2025, the film ranked number 55 on the New York Times' list of the best movies of the 21st century and number 24 on the Reader's Choice edition of that list. Inception currently holds an 87% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, a 74 score on Metacritic, and a 4.2 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So, I guess the next place to go here, is this movie just a good set-piece action thriller, or is there something more to the movie?
I think that's all in the eye of the beholder.
You're probably right. I think you can watch this film just for the inverted heist portion of the film. I get much more out of it, but I also can appreciate those who really don't need that portion of the film to think that it's a good film.
When you talk about an inverted heist, I've had an idea for a long time of a screenplay or a movie where somebody gets set up for a homicide or a murder by a group of people who are renowned with their knowledge of forensic evidence and basically manufacture forensic evidence to plant in a murder scene to tie somebody who has nothing to do with the crime. That would be the same concept.
That sounds like a Benoit Blanc mystery.
Could be.
We'll suggest it to Rian Johnson for his next film. So, Dad, do you have a plot summary ready for us?
I do. Inception is a mind-bending science fiction thriller written and directed by Christopher Nolan. Dom Cobb, Leonardo DiCaprio, is a skilled thief who specializes in stealing secrets from deep within someone else's subconscious during dreams. However, when he is offered a chance to have his criminal record erased, Cobb must accomplish the impossible, planting an idea in someone's mind through a process known as Inception. To succeed, he assembles a team and ventures into a multi-layered dream world where time stretches and reality blurs. As the mission unfolds, Cobb faces not only the risk of the job, but the haunting memories of his past that threaten to sabotage everything.
Thank you, Dad. All right, did you know? Writer, producer, and director Sir Christopher Nolan, and it is now Sir, he has been knighted, first pitched this movie to Warner Brothers after the completion of his third movie, Insomnia, and was met with approval from the studio. However, it was not yet written at the time, and Nolan determined that rather than writing it as an assignment, it would be more suitable to his working style if he wrote it as a spec script and then presented it to the studio whenever it was completed. So he went off to write it, thinking it would take a couple of months, but it ultimately took him nearly 8 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes you got to see a project through.
Yeah.
Did you know? In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, writer, producer, and director Sir Christopher Nolan explained that he based roles of the Inception team similar to roles that are used in filmmaking. Cobb is the director, Arthur is the producer, Ariadne is the production designer, Eames is the actor, Saito is the studio, and Fisher is the audience. In trying to write a team-based creative process, I wrote the one that I know, said Nolan. I would not have had all of those characters pegged for those specific roles, but some of them make sense. Did you know? Joseph Gordon-Levitt performed all but one of his own stunts during the fight scene in the spinning hallway. And if you have not seen the spinning hallway like deep dive that is from the special edition on the DVD or the Blu-ray, this entire rig was magnificent. And I think you can probably find all of it on YouTube, but there literally was this entire, like, it's like a studio hall or whatever one of those giant open area gyms that they have essentially is. And they built the entire rig and as it's spinning. So they had that whole thing as a practical stunt, which to me is always astounding.
Wow. Man, he did his thing up that one.
Oh, yeah. He goes way out of his way to do the practical stunts on these, but that's why his movies cost so much. But then again, you always make back your money. Did you know? Once Leonardo DiCaprio was cast, he spent months with Sir Christopher Nolan working on the script. Nolan stated, "He made some extraordinary contributions to the script and really challenged me to make the script clear. but also to follow its interior logic and really be true to the essence of the characters and the rules we set out. Nolan's wife and producing partner, Emma Thomas, said that the work DiCaprio did on his character with Chris made the movie less of a puzzle and more of a story of a character audiences could relate to. I would agree.
Man, that movie would have been, I guess, Tenet if it wasn't for DiCaprio.
Stay tuned for our discussion, and what would that be? I guess it's another 5 years, so 2030 for Tenet. Yeah. Want to hear me rail against a Christopher Nolan movie? That would be the one. It's the one where I felt betrayed.
Yes, I'll have to watch it and see if I can't figure out a way to just really build it up just to annoy the hell out of you.
If you thought this was undecipherable, good luck. Make sure to have the subtitles on.
And the director with you.
Even he said he stopped thinking about it so much. All right.
Film is a Jackson Pollock painting.
Okay. Did you know Cillian Murphy, Robert Fisher, doubled for a young Maurice Fisher with glasses and a mustache in the bedside photo, which I've never noticed, and now I have to go back and look for it. Did you know if you take the first letters of the main characters' names, Dom, Robert, Eames, Arthur, Mal, and Saito, they spell dreams. If you add Peter, Ariadne, and Yusuf, the whole of their names makes dreams pay, which is what they do for a mind thief. That's just somebody being extra, like, up their own ass. Even I'll admit that's just like, why?
But it's right there.
And finally, in the city scene on the first level of the dream with Fisher, the state motto on the license plates of the cars reads, "The alternate state." Nice little Easter egg there for you. Probably should have said the altered state, but oh well. Anyway, that looks like a good spot for our first break. We will be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 271st episode, we welcome back author and podcaster Terry Bartley for one last lap around Andy's room with Toy Story 3, also celebrating its 15th anniversary. Directed by Lee Unkrich, written by Michael Arndt, cinematography by Jeremy Lasky and Kim White, music by Randy Newman, starring Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, Joan Cusack, Don Rickles, Michael Keaton, Wallace Shawn, and John Ratzenberger. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Okay. Before we get too much further, Walt, what is going on with you and where can people find you?
Yes, I'm trying to be all over the interwebs. My goal for this year is to be an overnight success. So basically with that, putting out a lot of different podcasts and man on the street interviews, just speaking to people, a wide range of topics from business and entrepreneurship to career growth to diversity, equity, inclusion to making people reenact their favorite movies on the spot. Just trying to do different things and play games with people, create content that's informative but also entertaining. So diving into that edutainment world on all the platforms. Just search my name.
Can do. Be excited to see what you come up with.
Thank you.
Weren't you going to do like Black Jeopardy one of these times and I was supposed to come on to do like the Tom Hanks character?
Yeah, I remember that. I think all roads are leading up to having a whole game show because that actually would be incredibly fun. So we will see.
I'm okay with being completely embarrassed not knowing a single thing about Black culture.
Be first on the, what's that saying? First on the call sheet?
Yeah, that works.
Yep.
All right, sounds good. I'll hold you to that. All right, Dad, we left off at best performance. Who do you have down?
Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, it's kind of the default here because he wrote it, he directed it, he knew where all of the stunts were going to be. It'd be really difficult to probably say anybody else given his total body of work and influence on the movie. But Walter has somebody else. I can just see it in his face.
Give best performance to directors and stuff. The behind the camera.
You say that every time you're on.
What?
Literally, we could go back to the Toy Story 2 episode and you said the same thing.
Yes, we'll have to do a mashup of your comments about that on your 5 previous appearances.
Yeah, if I don't see the mashup, I don't believe it. Y'all, the audience, they're lying to you.
Okay, Tom,
They're gonna go
All
back
right.
through.
I will make sure to get our people on it. We'll do a matchup for you.
It's gonna be what's it, the Mandela effect, or yeah. Well, I had Leonardo DiCaprio as best performance.
Any particular reason?
I thought it was a no-brainer for all the reasons, and I now learned that he influenced the direction of the, or at least the clarity of the movie. But I just thought it was very interesting, just like the character growth throughout the whole series. He came from someone who was like a confident, like almost thief in a sense, to being someone who's kind of like hurt and wounded by this loss that he feels responsible for. I just thought, every movie he's in, I don't think I could give anyone the best performance award without giving it to him first. Everyone else kind of runner up, but shout out to Sir Christopher Nolan, though.
So I think DiCaprio, for most people, has kind of gotten to the status, to borrow a phrase from a different Christopher Nolan movie. He's gone past dying as a hero and he's now become the villain of his own success. He's been so ever present in our lives for 20 years of stardom. I guess it's pretty close to 30 by this point. And he's been the teen heartthrob. And now we just kind of make all of these jokes that he was Oscar chasing for however long, that by the time he finally got his Oscar, it was probably well past what his prime was. And now, since he's gotten his Oscar, there have been very few movies that I could say or point to that he was like really great in, per se. One of them is another favorite of mine, and that would be a film we covered last year, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I know he's got this Paul Thomas Anderson movie he's got coming sometime, I think, this year. But he's very more choosy about what he takes when he takes it, and he's not going to just jump into everything in the way that he was at this time or not. I think there's kind of an unusual path that this is his only Christopher Nolan movie, because Nolan reworks with a lot of similar actors. And I know for the most part, he doesn't rework with a lot of lead actors. Like, he has not worked again with McConaughey. He has not worked, I guess, again with Guy Pearce either. He has not reworked with Hugh Jackman. So some of his lead characters, he's not going back to repeatedly, except for Christian Bale, because obviously you can't recast Batman for every movie of a trilogy. That wouldn't please the studio very much. But
although they tried it before.
Yeah, and look how that worked. We even have a joke episode on it.
Yes, we do.
So, regardless, though, I think that he's the enigma at the center of this movie. In the maze that is the layered dream work and the complicated plot and everything else that's going on, the secret in the center for me is his character and how you unlock that character. And that's why I have him as my most charismatic, is that I think you slowly peel back the layers around him and what his presence, not only in the overall bigger part of the plot in the heist, because he's obviously the leader of this gang. He's the guy that's the most experienced. He's been in a lot of these places that the others have not before, but he's also got the most complicated nature to the film. And so I find that to be a really endearing draw for me through the course of the film. I think recently I've let Matt Damon surpass him as my favorite actor, but for a long time, DiCaprio was my number one guy.
Shout out to Matt Damon.
Definitely. And Matt Damon also seems a little bit more personally wholesome, whereas there are definitely some odd things about DiCaprio's dating history that we won't get into here.
All right. Yeah, the life choices.
Yeah.
Moving on. Best secondary performance. I have Hans Zimmer. I love the score in this movie. I don't think that I get as emotional about the ending if it isn't for the welling of the score. And I understand, and I can completely appreciate those who say it's bombastic and that Zimmer kind of hits you over the head a lot with these really dramatic pulse movements throughout the film. But for me, the way that it soars, it's energetic, and I also love his Batman film scores. I don't know. For me, this is the draw. Like, I love a good complementary musical score, and I cannot see this movie without the score. I would see it very differently if it were not complementary in the way that I think it is.
Elliot Page as Ariadne. Elliot Page is already Ariadne. I think that probably like an underrated role, but kind of like the key to the success of the whole mission, the movie. Just the layers. Like, I think without that character, that we would not have turned out the way it went. Just the whole decision to continue to go even deeper, holding Cobb's character accountable for staying true, and also at the very end, Cobb may have decided to stay with the dream of his wife instead of returning to reality if it wasn't for Ariadne's character. So, giving secondary performance to Elliot Page. And then also that one, well, I'll get to that scene later, but just, yeah.
Secondary, I have Leo. He carried the largest portion of the film, and everything kind of was drawn from him. It's one of his better performances. And he was not playing somebody that was supposed to be 20 years younger than him, which is the problem I had with his performance in Killers of the Flower Moon. So, and as far as charismatic, I had Hans Zimmer, which goes back to the fact that I don't know if I have ever said this, but I actually had, this is still in the days of cassette tapes, but I actually had a cassette tape of Hans Zimmer's instrumentals from the show Miami Vice. It was released as an album, and I used to listen to that while I was driving sometimes because it just made great driving music.
How exciting, Dad.
Yes. Thought I would share.
I was fully expecting you there to say that I had a cassette version of Driving Miss Daisy, the score, because he also did that one.
No.
Doodle doo 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 doodle doo 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 doo.
Charismatic. I could have given it to Leo, but I was like, okay, let me try someone else. Marion Cotillard. Marion Cotillard, thank you. As Maul. Just very convincing throughout the whole movie, and yeah, gotta give it to her. I really loved the kind of ending scene, and throughout the movie didn't really know if she was the bad guy, a villain, or what exactly she was, but really just hurting, and in a way just very influential of a character. So I think she did a very good job with her role. Very believable.
This was really my first experience with her, and I was very taken with how she does the character. And while there's a certain level of desperation, she plays kind of a ballsy lead in this, or like a secondary character. Like, she's always hanging in the background as kind of this almost horror-esque villain that can pop out at any time and ruin everything. And so it's kind of an odd character to play. Like, she definitely has to be desperate and devious, and there's a whole range of different sides to that character that have to be played. Not only from the real existing one, which they only show in flashback, but then the projection version, which obviously has to be somewhat distinct as well. So it's kind of a layered, complicated character, and I give her credit because some of the other stuff I've seen her in, I'm not as taken with, but I find this character to be very engaging.
I wonder what type of prep, or like, I know sometimes with actors, they talk about, after it's over, just like having to kind of recover from that role. Like, I wonder what that was like for her, because she really had to lean all the way in and pass that. So
I know there are listeners to the show that are much more educated on the acting styles of others than I am. And I don't know of her to necessarily be a method actor, which is those that basically live the character while they're trying to play it. But it's possible, I suppose. I don't know of too many actresses that have really gone to the level of method acting that I'm aware of. It seems to be much more of a male-oriented, narcissistic thing, which is why people like Jared Leto do it.
Was that for the Joker movie that he went full in?
Yeah, the Suicide Squad thing.
Or
And he
Suicide
was,
Squad? That's what.
yeah, he was sending like joke gag gifts to other members of the cast. Like he'd send a dead rat. Yeah, it got weird.
That is weird.
I can only imagine how he was in character when he was playing a vampire for Morbius.
Or Dallas
Wow.
Buyers Club.
No, I don't want to imagine that one.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on. Let's go to best scene then. I have 5 nominees here. I have Extraction on Saito, which is the opening set piece. There's one thing that I can really know about a Nolan film. It will always have a really engaging opening. I think the only film that I can truly say that he doesn't have like a set piece in the opening, at least the modern ones. I don't remember Memento necessarily having a big action set piece in the beginning of it. But basically, since he started doing Batman, that was like the first one where you knew there was a big set piece kind of thing coming together with the whole thing. And that really started with the Dark Knight and the bus heist and that sort of thing. He's done and tried to top himself ever since with tons of different things to open his movies. But the only one modernly that I could say doesn't have a huge set piece to it is Oppenheimer, where it was just the raindrops. But outside of that, the extraction on Saito, obviously the water rushing in, kind of letting you know what the architecture of the movie is going to be with how different random things can be and the unsteadiness and that you're in this dream within a dream type of thing. I thought it was a really great introduction into the movie that you're in this world that's complete creation, but it has to be different than our own reality. So it's going to have different properties, different rules. Then I have the introduction to shared dreaming, which is kind of the exposition dump that we have when she starts walking through Paris. You have the scene where everything explodes on them, which I don't know if he was able to do that practically. I can't imagine that he would. I don't know how you would do it practically. Anyway, then I have the hallway fight. Enough explanation there. Riding the kicks, which is when Fisher comes back, wakes up, goes to get the safe from his father, and you have that emotional cathartic movement where everything starts to piece together. They accomplish the heist, well, Inception, and everything starts to piece together. The puzzle pieces all fit, and then they all wake up. And then finally, Welcome Home, which is, again, the score is swelling. You have the question of whether or not he's going to get through immigration, which is a bigger question nowadays than it was at the time. And then finally, his, I guess, revelation, but that moment where he sees his kids, or does he? And we get the ending moment. So, Dad, I would figure you don't have anything to add because you're really not that interested in nominating a best scene.
No.
Walt, anything to add?
I would say when he had to figure out how to do the kick without, I think it was, Arthur, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, how to do the kick without gravity. That was, crucial moment of the movie, but I thought that was very fascinating, him figuring out the adding explosions to the elevator. That was just interesting to me. And then the whole chain of the kicks, I just liked watching the series of people waking up and waking up. But you kind of mentioned that. Only other thing I would say is, I would actually say I think the last scene is the best scene because that's one that just sticks with you and leaves you questioning, is this real or is he dreaming while being locked up at Shutter Island? So I'd just argue that is the best scene. But yeah, and I loved not my favorite scene, but one of the best. But yeah, I like your selections there.
All right. I personally have the writing of the kicks. When everything starts to piece together and you have those moments, especially with Fisher and his dad, and the reversal of I'm disappointed in you to I'm disappointed that you ever tried to think you had to be me. To me, the turn and that flip, and that's really when the emotionality of it starts to kick in for me. And it's basically an emotional moment for me up until the top starts to topple, or does it?
Mm-hmm.
But that to me is the best scene because it's a combination of everything that you've gotten up to that point, all the layers, everything is leading up to that moment, and it pays off significantly for me.
Yeah. You know, one scene, wouldn't say is the best, but a scene where I was like, how's this going to work out was when he found the old man living with no regrets, right? And he was like, they're kind of remembering. And I was curious for a moment when he was saying this isn't real, if that would affect him as he finally awoke the way that it affected his wife.
Mm.
And it didn't, but I was like, that was like a concern. I was like, oh, this might not go how you think it's gonna go. But I guess at the same time, they're both kind of remembering at the same time as well.
So the properties of how to accomplish Inception definitely change. And that's maybe one of my major criticisms of the plot, if there can be one. And I do have my criticisms. I don't think this is a perfect film. I think I like it because of some of its imperfectness, but essentially they've all included every extraction, every inception has a safe in it where you lock away like your most valuable memories or the things that your secrets. And Maul locks hers away as the top. She wants to forget that she is no longer in reality. She wants to accept that this is her reality. And he goes in and he betrays her by basically undoing that process and plays with the interior of her mind. However, for Fisher, while he does open up the safe and it does contain that pinwheel, which is him accepting this reality or this new reality, even they have basically said he's given himself the idea where we took away the relationship he had with his godfather and projected it now on his poor relationship with his dad to give him this new break and redefining his own self within how these relationships with these two powerful men have gone in his life and who he needs to be now that he's without both of them, essentially. So instead of somebody quite literally planting it in the safe of his mind, he has planted his own stuff in his own safe in his own mind. And to me, that's disobeying the rules of what has been created to this point to even say that Inception is capable. Now, I accept the reality of the film, and it's still emotionally moving for me, but that would be my one major criticism of the plot. I have some nitpicks and some other things where it's like, well, they got a little cute by half with a few of these things and disobeyed some of their own rules, but it's overlookable. But that to me, if you're saying that the Inception was pulled off, you have now created at least two distinct ways that someone can be incepted in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for somebody who's watched the movie 20 some times and thought about it probably way too much. And you could definitely see my dad's reaction here.
Yeah.
So for anybody on audio, you cannot see the faces that Dana is making. Make your way to the YouTube.
Let's just say, okay.
Okay. So Dad, what is your best scene?
I like riding the kicks. I just think that's the most entertaining portion of the film. At least it keeps you enthralled while you're trying to figure out what the fuck is going on.
Okay.
Sorry, one last other one. The scene where they first enter into his dream. All of a sudden, the security's there. A train just popping out of nowhere. I had to throw that into the nomination. Still not my number one, but I had to throw that into best scene one.
Okay. Moving to favorite scenes, my favorite scene is the welcome home because of that memory I have of everybody groaning at the end of the movie when I watched at UW La Crosse during college. And to me, that's one of the most satisfying because I'm like, yeah, everybody else is confused too. And they're intrigued. They're like, it's a brain teaser for them, but now they have to think about it on the way home.
It's UW La Crosse. They weren't thinking about it. They only thought about it until they got to the bar.
That's fair. But you could say that of any Wisconsin school.
In fact, probably not even until they got to the bar. They probably had carry-ons in their pockets and were drinking in the parking lot on the way there.
Probably. You got a pregame.
Yeah.
That's a great game. I think my favorite scene was the fighting in the hotel hallway. It's probably one of three scenes that I've always remembered throughout the years. And watching it doesn't disappoint. And now knowing that he did his own stunts and just hearing the way they constructed that scene, hands down favorite.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage you to go watch that YouTube video then.
Favorite scene I have, Extraction on Saito. I just think it's kind of a badass scene. I think it's the most action filled and the most simplistic as far as what you're talking about, and you can follow along. You can just enjoy the action, what's going on.
Yeah, it's before you have to realize that it's all within a dream.
Or is it?
Okay.
Shutter Island.
Most indelible moment for me is the final top spin.
I have Welcome Home. I mean, I don't see what the big complication is and why this is nuanced. The kids are the same age as throughout the dream sequence, wearing the same frickin' clothes. It's obviously a dream. It's not even that complicated to think about.
And you would be
Wow.
wrong.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
They're wearing the same clothes. They're the same
I
age.
understand. That logically would hold up, except Christopher Nolan is on record saying that when Michael Caine is in the movie, that's reality. And the bigger part of it is that even if it isn't reality, and let's say you obey the Quentin Tarantino version of things where he doesn't want to reveal things about his movies because you have built up these different stories or your own way of interpreting his movie, so it becomes your movie at that point. Let's say that you ignore that Christopher Nolan has any statement at all. The bigger part that he has pointed out is that he walks away from the top spinning. He doesn't wait to see if it topples. So no matter where he is, he doesn't care anymore. That has become his reality.
But in
They
reality,
have special places for people like that. They're
Shutter
usually
Island.
involving a court-ordered commitment.
And white padded cells.
Yes.
Okay.
In a remote area.
Well, apparently you want to come on for Shutter Island.
That really just defined it for me. That I did not think about the kids wearing the same clothes. He was in a dream. He really is locked up in the psych ward for killing his wife. Didn't he kill his wife in that movie too?
I don't know. I still have not seen Shutter Island.
You haven't seen it?
No.
Oh man, spoilers.
I haven't
my
either.
bad. Oh, what?
It's a
Okay,
large
yeah.
omission from my overall filmography.
I have
Well,
several, but
You can't watch
for
everything.
my 7th appearance, it's got to be Shutter Island.
Unfortunately, your 7th appearance is already signed up for like 2 or 3 weeks from now. So it'll have to be the 8th.
I might have to cancel. No, okay, we can do 8th.
Well, if you're ever going to get close to any of these records that you keep talking about getting to, you got to come on for more than just Shutter Island and Denzel movies.
For now, it's going to be Leonardo. I moved on from Denzel. We're on Leo now.
Fair enough. He's got a large body of work to address. And we have my other favorite Leo film coming up next year.
Titanic?
No, I hate Titanic. It is the one Leo film I just detest. Anyway, Walt, your most indelible moment.
You know, I'll be honest, I wasn't sure for this one. I think to the spinning top, but I couldn't think of just one in particular.
Okay.
The whole movie, Inception, was my indelible moment.
Okay. I guess we can deal with that. So that looks like a good spot for our second break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, and before we get to the Stanley Rubric in a minute, if you're ever curious about our Master Greatest Movies of All Time list that is every graded movie we've ever discussed on the show, there's a link in the episode description of every episode of this show, or you can go to RonnieDuncanStudios.com/Gmote podcast and find it as the top entry on the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast show page. That has the grades we've done so far for all 243 movies we've graded, and we continue to add more each week. Make sure to check that out as we go and follow along. Dad, do we have anyone to remember this week?
Yes. Mark Snow, 78, American film and television composer. The X-Files, Smallville, and Blue Bloods. Julian McMahon, 56, Australian actor. Nip Tuck, Fantastic Four, Home and Away. Jim Shooter, 73, American comic book writer, Secret Wars, Superman, and editor of Marvel Comics. Kenneth Colley, 87, English actor. Star Wars, Monty Python's The Life of Brian, Firefox. And lastly, Michael Madsen, 67, American actor. Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill, Volume 2, Donnie Brasco.
So I would like to recognize here a few different people for some various connections that I have to them. Obviously, Julian McMahon, now that we are about to have the next Fantastic Four film, he was the original Doctor Doom, as we're about to get Robert Downey Jr.'s version of that character, at least one version of that character as it expands into a larger universe. And I actually thought he was a fairly good Doctor Doom in the original couple of movies for the Fantastic Four when they came out. I never saw Nip Tuck, but I know that that was a semi-popular cable TV series, and he seemed to be a very affable actor that was very appealing for a lot of people. So obviously that, given that he was only 56, very difficult loss there. Jim Shooter. There are very few people that have had as significant of a overall effect on the comic book world probably as he has. Like, he might be in that second tier of just most momentous people, other than people who single-handedly created certain characters. So you think about Jack Kirby or Stan Lee. There's obviously Bob Kane and Bill Finger. There's Jerry Siegel and Jim Schuster. Some of those people, and then like a Grant Morrison. Those kinds of people are like tier one of comic book creators. And Jim Shooter's in like that next class of figures. What we're about to have with Secret Wars coming up for the Marvel series is all by his creation. He was on a very big run in Superman, and he was the chief editor for our Marvel comics at one time or another. So obviously, if you're at all a comic book fan, big loss there. Kenneth Colley, for most people, is going to be known as Admiral Piet, which we just talked about in the Empire Strikes Back episode. He is the person that, by default, after Vader kills like 3 other guys, ends up taking over. But he's probably most recognizable for that moment in cinema history. And then finally, Michael Madsen. I cannot listen to, is it Steelers Wheel is the song from Reservoir Dogs, without thinking of him cutting off a guy's ear. I mean, he was always such an interesting actor that seemed so comfortable in his own skin at all times. He was authentically himself, and that married up so well with all of his various roles in Quentin Tarantino movies and whatever else. But very great character actor. You knew him immediately whenever he was on screen. He always had the same kind of presence at all times, and he just knew who he was, fair and simple. And so I know there have been a lot of people with shared memories of him. I did not know until this week that he was related to Virginia Madsen, the actress, who obviously had some very fond messages online that got shared around that were very touching. I'm not sure if he was ill or had what was his eventual demise, but
Heart attack.
Okay. But yeah, 67.
Yeah.
For modern medicine, that's still probably pretty young, all things considered. And so we remember these here fondly with a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. All right, let's make our awkward transition to best funniest lines. I'll start with Cobb. What is the most resilient parasite? Is it a bacteria, a virus, an intestinal worm? An idea, resilient, highly contagious. Once an idea is taken hold of in the brain, it's almost impossible to eradicate. An idea that is fully formed, fully understood, that sticks right in there somewhere. By the way, that's the skeleton key to the entire movie.
I actually like that line a lot. Arthur, it would have to be a 747. Cobb, why is that? Arthur, because a 747, the pilot's up top in the first class cabin in the nose, so no one would walk through. But you have to buy the entire cabin and the first class flight attendants. Saito, I bought the airline. It just seemed neater.
Listen, there's something you should know about me, about Inception. An idea is like a virus, resilient, highly contagious. The smallest seed of an idea can grow. It can grow to define or destroy you.
Eames, you mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling. Pulls out a grenade launcher.
Cobb, I can't stay with her anymore because she doesn't exist. Maul, I'm the only thing you do believe in anymore. Cobb, I wish more than anything, but I can't imagine you with all your complexity, all your perfection, all your imperfection. Look at you. You're just a shade of my real wife. You're the best I can do, but I'm sorry. You're just not good enough.
Cobb, they say we only use a fraction of our brain's true potential. Now that's when we are awake. When we're asleep, we can do almost anything.
Ariadne, why is it so important to dream? Cobb, because in my dreams we are together.
Maurice Fisher. Disappointed. Fisher. I know, Dad. I know you were disappointed. I couldn't be you. No, no, no. I was disappointed that you tried.
I'm out.
Oh, okay. Saito, don't you want to take a leap of faith? Or become an old man filled with regret, waiting to die alone? You out too, Walt?
Yeah, I'm out.
All right. Cobb, dreams feel real when we're in them. It's only when we wake up that we realize something was actually strange. Then I have Maul. You remember when you asked me to marry you? You said you dreamt that we'd grow old together. Cobb, but we did. We did. Don't you remember? I miss you more than I can bear, but we had our time together, and I have to let go. I have to let you go.
I
Arthur,
have one more, actually.
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Saito, you remind me of someone, a man I met in a half-remembered dream. He was possessed of some radical notions.
Then I have Arthur. Eames, I am impressed. Eames, your condescension as always is much appreciated, Arthur. Thank you. I really need to find a way to bring that one up. I need to insert that into my daily life. Then I have Fisher. Couldn't somebody have dreamt up a goddamn beach? And finally, I have Eames. They come here every day to sleep. Elderly bald man. No, they come to be woken up. The dream has become their reality. Who are you to say otherwise, son? All right, so we move to the Stanley rubric. Should almost have a drum roll here for all of Dana's scores, but we'll find out shortly enough. Legacy is up first, as it always is. This is a measure of the legacy of the movie approximately 5 years after it came out to today. Since this movie is only 15 years old, we are only looking at the last 10 years. So 2015 to today, what is the legacy of this film as shared between the audience and the industry? 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Dad, would you like to go first or second?
I will lead off.
Have at her, Hoss.
Okay. Legacy. The public. This film is losing steam from where it was 15 years ago. A lot of people in our office had seen it. There's a lot of people that talk about it. I'm not sure at this point in time it would be even considered one of Nolan's better films by a lot of people. I do admit, though, that there are people who really love it. And I found a quote from the New Yorker, David Danby, who considered the film to be not nearly as much fun as Nolan imagined it to be, concluding that Inception is a stunning looking film that gets lost in fabulous intricacies, a movie devoted to its own workings and to little else. And so to that extent, I give it, because the public still has, or certain elements of the public really love it, I'll give it a 4. But the industry, I give it a 3.5 because of multiple comments, such as David Danby provided. So I don't think it's had the staying power that originally it said. So I have it a 7.5 overall.
Okay. So since you had said something about you weren't sure whether it was in the top 5, based on letterboxed ratings right now among cinephiles, we have Inception coming in at number 5 in overall box office ranking of Christopher Nolan films. He's made 12. Currently, Memento is number 1. The Prestige is number 2. Following, which I think is grossly underrated and is credited as his first feature film from 1998, is number 3. And The Dark Knight is number 4. So this comes in ahead of Interstellar, ahead of Oppenheimer, ahead of Dunkirk, all films that I have a high degree of respect for. I think the worst rated one is Tenet.
Oppenheimer and Dunkirk are both way above this as far as I'm concerned.
No, I'm just saying. You said it wasn't necessarily considered, and it's ahead of some other ones that you find to be better films. Now, I will say that, again, I think that this movie lives in a polarized universe, and so people have some very strong reactions to it. And as such, it's going to sink more to the middle than it is necessarily going to be at the top. But I really don't like the fact that this is one of my favorite movies. And then Christopher Nolan seems to be my favorite director. And that is a shared property between Cinebros, because I don't think I'm a Cinebro given my love and affection for romantic comedies. But I got to at least check myself at the door a little bit occasionally. That being said, I have this as a 4 and a 4. I think that the legacy for it can't be anywhere near a 5 because we don't have the benefit of time. As much as it's been awarded and recognized and some other things, even after the fact, and I read off a fairly long list of things that it was included upon, I still agree with you to a degree that among all the great films that Christopher Nolan has made, this has kind of fallen into the middle of the pack a little bit. So even as personal a connection as I have to it, my own personal affinities aside, I have it for an industry 4, and I also have it as an audience 4 because of its polarized nature, because there's really not going to be too many film fans that have not seen this, given its recency, given how big it was at the time that it came out, given the names that are attached, particularly Christopher Nolan and Leonardo DiCaprio. So from that standpoint, it lives within most people's memories right now, at least I would say those that are like 25 to probably 55 for the most part, at least know of the film if you're a regular film goer. Like, I'm not half the people in our office who rarely have ever seen any films. I'm not counting them necessarily, but I'm also not discounting them either. So I have that at a 4. I have an 8. Not too very different from you.
By the way, better to be a Cinebro than a Cinnabon. Less likely to cause diabetes.
Yeah, well, I have a problem with both.
Mm.
Not that I like Cinnabon, but I look like one.
I think that Cinebros could love too. It's okay to watch rom-coms.
The shittier the better with some of those. Like the ones that are so formulaic, the Hallmark ones, they're a great Christmas treat for me because whenever I'm feeling like sad or lonely, I'm like, I could be extra sad and lonely and be watching this, or I could just be making fun of the fact that this is really pathetic.
Boom. Enjoyed it all. I have this at a total of 8 as well, but gave it a 5 for the industry, just all the accolades it's gotten, but a 3 for the public, literally just because I do think it's kind of fallen off of people's radars and conversations of like the best movies. I don't think it's there. I think when you bring up Inception, everyone's like, oh yes, that was amazing, but I don't think it has the same. It's just kind of fallen off. I think it's what it was.
So that's a 7.83 average between the three of us. Let's move to impact and significance. This is a measure of the impact and significance between those same two groups, the industry and the audience, within the initial 5 years that this came out. Now, because you started the category last time, Dad, I will lead here. In the moment that this came out, It was number 4 at the box office. I think it was a big deal to show that Nolan was not limited to Batman and that he was a bigger director than just doing the Batman films. Because even though The Prestige had come out, anything that was not Batman related that was attached to his name did not have quite the box office numbers that the Batman films did. So for this to come immediately on the heels of The Dark Knight, I think this is the movie that truly makes Christopher Nolan into what we know him to be today, as kind of almost a franchise to himself. Anytime his movies or his name specifically is on the poster, it's probably going to rake in $700 to $1 billion, $700 million to $1 billion every single time. And I would imagine that the Odyssey will be no different next year, that we'll have lines of people going to see that movie because it's an event anytime one of his films comes out. He is a special director. I think singularly, he is probably the one that draws the most universal fans together, whether you're a Cinebro or, let's say, the casual viewer. He is the most likely to bring out the casual viewer to a non-franchise, non-sequel property and get your ass in the seat for 2 to 3 hours, bar none. And if nothing else, that by itself is a significant accomplishment. So from that standpoint, I got to give it a little bit higher than what I did for Legacy based on his career promotion, because he, within the 5 years after this, he has 2 other movies that, whether you like nor hate them, we've covered both of them on the show to this point. That would be The Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar. But he's gone on to this expansive career, and now he is an Academy Award-winning director as of his last film. So you can't completely knock that. And I think this is another one in the string of Leo films that, between Shutter Island, between The Wolf of Wall Street, between Django Unchained, that he just had a nice string of movies that were all box office hits. He was a very bankable star in that moment. Now, I think his star has faded quite a bit since 2015 and he won his Oscar. I led the show off with that. But even so, between that and the fact that this was nominated for 8 Oscars, it won 4, and it was mostly in technical, but I think it was finally a recognition that Christopher Nolan probably should have gotten, starting with The Dark Knight, where they started to change some of the rules to fit awarding him. I think his influence had started to be felt, and you could see the audience starting to come out for his film. So I have a 4.5 for the industry, but I still have a 4 for the audience because it was only the number 4 film of that year, and it wasn't quite Christopher Nolan yet. So I have an 8.5.
I have the public at a 5.
Okay.
And I have the industry because it basically cemented his star power with the studios. I have the industry at a 4. So I'm at a 9. So I gave it more points than you did in this category. Wow.
That's fine.
I went ahead and just said, F it, gave it a 10. I truly think, I think this movie influenced other movies that came out afterward. Like Doctor Strange, for example, just the special effects of it. In fact, I think I saw there was an article about it, but it was behind a paywall, and I was not going to pay to get over the walls. And then, we'll stop at that. But I just think this movie was incredibly impactful, and well, that kind of rolls us to the next category as well. But I'll stop there.
All right, so that is a 9.17 average between the 3 of us. Let's move to novelty then. This is a category defined as a split category as well. However, we changed this for 2 different things than audience and industry, and instead for originality and execution, for 5 and 5 points apiece and a total of 10. Dad, would you like to go first here?
Sure. I see a lot of parallels to other concept films of alternative realities. The Matrix, some other things, and some of those other ones. So I don't think it's completely unique or original in all aspects. And ultimately, as I indicated, this is, or as you said, reverse, but I just said it's a caper film. So I went 3.5 for originality. But where I come in with my points is execution. I think, other than the fact that there are some flaws in it and some logical inconsistencies here and there, I think it's extremely well done. The stunts, the visual, the cinematography, everything else. It took me a stretch, but I mean, realistically, I did go down just a tad. I'm at a 4.5 for originality. So I am at a 8 overall.
Okay, so we have an 8 on the board. Walt, would you like to go next?
I have another 8 on the board. I do think it was just because there's just a few things I'm still kind of questioning as far as the execution, just the realization at the end, like, oh, it's not real. I'm just still kind of questioning like why that didn't affect him when he fully woke up. And then even the moment that you talked about him planting the own idea in his mind. So execution, there's just a few flaws, which is the only reason I wouldn't give it a 5. And so for that, I have a 4. And then I do think it's an original film, but there is still like it's a heist that at the end of the day is just a different type of heist. So I'll give it a 4 as well for that. Yeah, it could have been a Mission Impossible series. Like this time we going into the dreams to fight the bad guys. But yeah, 8 overall.
All right. It should surprise no one that when I saw it, I thought this was probably the most original thing that I'd seen at that point. Now, I was not a sophisticated film fan. I certainly had not watched anything to the level of depth or quality or broadness of what I have now. But even saying that, I still find this to be a very original concept. And I differ from my father often on this part of Novelty, in that just because it's borrowing some tropes from some different things, if it kind of reinvents or does something so subversive that I find it to be kind of doing its own thing to create a moniker within a genre, that by itself to me is much more worthy of higher points than it is to him. And I can respect his argument on it somewhat, but for me, this is a 5. I think both from the inventiveness of the practical stunt work having to do with the dream world, which any other film involving dreams or this kind of art direction, set design sort of thing is going to be very CGI heavy. And this is not. So from that standpoint, I have to give it a full 5. I think it's inventive in its storytelling. I think it's inventive in its visuals. I think it's inventive in its stunt work and its art direction. So for me, this is up to that level at a 5. Where I knock just it slightly off is I think the execution is only at a 4 for me. Even as much as I like this film, there are enough nitpicks and small things both within the plot, within the larger way the story is told, that it becomes a little bit too convoluted for people. And even for me, I had to watch it like 3 times to really feel like I got a full grasp around the entirety of the story. There is a little bit of an inaccessibility for a first time viewer of this movie that I find to be a little difficult on that part. Maybe you can say that should be reserved for classicness, but there are spots in this where it's a little bit clunky and I can understand people's criticisms a little bit more. The acting to me is the big kicker on this one. There are a couple of people, while they're good in the movie, there are just some moments where they fall a little bit flat or they just have some odd moments. I mean, we have Oscar winners through most of the cast. Marion Cotillard, Oscar winner. Leonardo DiCaprio, Oscar winner. Elliot Page is a multiple time nominee, I believe. At least got one nomination for Juno going back in time. Cillian Murphy, obviously a Oscar winner for a Christopher Nolan film. So there's a lot of good character actors in this, but there are just some broad moments where I don't know, the affect of their acting to me fell a little flat. So I have it at a 9. So that's going to put it at an 8.33 average collectively.
By the way, please don't edit out the fact that you could somewhat appreciate my opinion.
Why would I edit that out?
Well, I hear it so infrequently.
Okay. Sure.
Okay.
Gotta keep this part in.
Let's move to classicness then. This is a measure basically of how well the film has aged or not, given that we don't have the benefit of a really long distance between when this movie came out and when we're now analyzing it. It's only 15 years. Timelessness is really not going to be a factor for this one yet. And I think it could age better as time goes on or as Christopher Nolan continues to make films, but we don't know yet. So where it currently sits, has this movie aged well or not? Dad, normally you would start on this category, but I feel a little frisky, so I'm going to start off. I think from a visual effects standpoint, Nolan is ahead of his peers on a lot of the technical and the practical aspects and how he likes to create his environment and his stunt work that has really pushed the industry forward in this regard. So I find that to be at least worthy of a point up. I don't have a whole lot to say about points down for this. It's not a movie that in my mind has significant age spots in it yet or things that have played poorly. If the worst that you can say is that it has an actress who transitioned and that makes some people uncomfortable, I guess that's the worst that you could do for that. But for some people, by the same token, that's progressive. And I certainly don't put that on the film. That's a personal choice that somebody made for themselves. So I have this at an 8 because I really don't have a whole lot to say to add up or down on this movie. I think it's a little bit ahead on the visuals, and that's it.
Honestly, I have it as a 9. Kind of rewatching it just because just before I could definitely watch this again later on. I think this is still a movie to reference. I think I honestly just hope it kind of continues to be looked at as a classic because I think it really is an important movie to have. Yeah, I don't think even with actors that's I feel like irrelevant because like watching that movie, it's just that movie itself. There's no real like ties to who that person is outside of that film. So
Agreed.
I think it's an important one, and definitely will continue to exist to be referenced to. I think it goes up in the rafters.
I'm looking at this and I'm saying a few things. One, I don't see a whole lot to distract from it. We have two, at that time at least, female characters in the film. At least one of them is only marginally involved for the most part. I wouldn't say marginally, but not as involved or significant. One is a protagonist more than anything else. So I can't give it points up or down for that. It's kind of neutral as far as I'm concerned. The overall elements of it and the concepts are not troubling to me except one. So I will give it a 1.5 up from the 6, simply because I think it does have a timelessness aspect to it that implies or does exist and is likely to continue. The only question I have is how in longevity the fact that Cobb planted in his wife's mind or started dealing internally with his wife's mind as to whether this is the equivalent of mental cruelty that would exist or mental abuse in a more cognitive or a more concrete world.
I guess as we deal with more openness about mental health, like I think the more often I've seen the film, I can definitely take your point. It's something I've considered myself. To me, why it's not going to bother me as much is he's filled with regret and dealing with the grief because even though in the duality of the situation, and you go back to the scene where he admits the reason he's in trouble with the law is they said I killed my wife. And then it's the question, well, thank you very much. Why? Because you didn't ask me whether I did. he believes in that moment because he did that. And what his guilt is that he feels he did, even though by most credible standards, he didn't actually push her off a ledge. He didn't stab her with a knife. There's the guilt aspect. And so to me, because he feels that tension, that grief, that guilt, I'm not necessarily letting him off the hook, but I think at least he's grappling with the nature of what his actions and consequences of his actions have been.
Well, and I understand your point, but I disagree with it because we have many times individuals who exemplify or express deep remorse and guilt over criminal activity that took place. But that does not excuse the fact that it has very deep psychological and marring effects upon the victim.
Except this is going back to our age-old debate between you and I yet again. The film is not promoting that you go and incept your own wife. In fact, it's trying to say the exact opposite. So if it's not promoting that this is a healthy thing, in fact, it's saying this was something that regret and tore him apart.
Well,
I don't know why that's detracting.
Okay, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that it may not matter because his regret and his guilt may not ultimately matter in the outcome, which is the result that took place. And I don't know at this point in time whether we're capable of completely assessing that and judging that. So because of the time frame of the film.
Okay.
If we look at it in 10 years, it may be different. That's why I couldn't go any higher than what I did. So I went with a 7.5. So I'm up 1.5 over the generic, and I'll stand by that. And I'm explaining why I went to there and not higher.
Okay. So that is a 8.17 average between the three of us. Finally, let's go to rewatchability. I know this is going to be very difficult for some to grasp. If it were on my personal rating scale, I would probably give this a 10 because I could probably turn on this movie at any point in time and have fun with it. It is not something that I turn on to on a generic Sunday afternoon, so it may not even be quite at that level. It would probably be more in the 9.5 region, despite my love and affinity for the film. But given that I have set a precedent that I am going to be objective about this category, I have this at a 7.5. I know there are people that really love this film, and there are people that rewatch it regularly, like myself, but there's also a cadre of people like my father, and I have to account for them. And this film isn't necessarily for everybody, and because it is so complicated at times that people can't always follow it, it turns some people off. And so the rewatchability is they watched it once and that was enough. So I have it at a 7.5.
I have that exact same number. For me, I enjoyed it. I will look forward to watching it again, but I'm not in a rush to at all. I think it's one of those movies where you don't just throw it on and let it play. You got to pay attention. I mean, fiance, when we're watching, I was watching by myself, but she came in to watch as well. She looked down at her phone. She looked up. It's like, where are they? And so it's just, if you're not paying attention, all of a sudden, a whole different place, a whole different setting, different things going on. So definitely a rewatchable movie, but not for everyone, and not something you could just, for me, can't watch it like the next day. Not like The Incredibles.
Yeah. All right. I do take into account what other people do. Okay. For me, quite frankly, I'm at a position where if I never saw this movie again, that would be fine with me. It would make no difference. I've seen it twice. I've seen it enough. I don't really need to see it again. But if somebody else really wanted to watch it, I would probably sit and watch it with them. Okay. And I do know that there are some people that really love this film and will rewatch it. It's just not going to be on my high list. So I'm at a 5. I tried to be as objective as I could, taking into account what I think other people would do and how I believe or feel about the movie.
All right, so that is a 6.67 average between the three of us. For audience score on this one, we had an 88% for Google users and a 91% for Rotten Tomato users, giving us a 9.05. So to repeat the categories, we had a 7.83 for legacy, a 9.17 for impact and significance, an 8.33 for novelty, an 8.17 for classicness, a 6.67 for rewatchability, and a 9.05 for audience score, giving us a final total of 49.22, and currently placing it on our list at number 80 behind Ben-Hur and in front of Gladiator. I'm kind of pleased with that finding. I mean,
Yeah, you said 88?
80.
80. Oh, I don't think that's bad. I don't think that's bad for this one.
I mean, we're getting pretty close to, I think this is the 5th Christopher Nolan film that we've done to this point. We do have The Prestige, I believe, on for next year. And I believe we also have Memento coming that we could probably make a Christopher Nolan ranking. This is only a few spots higher than Batman Begins. Obviously, The Dark Knight started the year as the number 1 film on the list. So there's that.
It's an incredible one.
Yeah. And Interstellar is in here somewhere. I can't remember. It's at 103. So there is some bunching of a few of these in here. I think Dark Knight Rises is actually quite a ways down the list. But even so, it's not a bad ranking. And it's in among some favorites of mine or some personal favorites. It's only a few spots higher than The Sting, The Life of Brian. It's just slightly ahead of Whiplash, Training Day. So, and it's just behind like The Third Man, It's a Wonderful Life, The Maltese Falcon. So it's kind of an interesting placement as where it's at currently.
Man, this is a very interesting podcast because, you know, when you're just like thinking of movies, like what's the best movie? It's like, oh, yeah, you think of a handful. But when you really take a look at all of the movies that are being created, it gets challenging, and some classics got to go farther down on the list. So it's kind of cool that y'all are doing this. And I've been doing it for so long.
Yep. Gonna be, well, this is basically 5.5 years at this point. A 7th of my lifetime doing this show, which is fascinating.
That's pretty cool.
As usual, you can find us on any of our socials at Gmode Podcast. You can find us at the website RonnieDuncanStudios.com/Gmode Podcast, or you can find us at Greatest All Time Movie Podcast at gmail.com. If you have any vitriol or things that you'd like to send Dana, or more commentary about how he looks like a particular stand-up comedian / voiceover actor, that's okay too. We'll accept any and all inquiries and different things. So they are appreciated. Even the odd comments sometimes on TikTok, we appreciate you for taking time to even view our stuff, even if you don't like us. So there you go. You're doing us a favor.
Yeah.
But let's move to remaining questions quickly. We've covered a few of the ones that I had down, such as, is Dobb at home in the end scene? Christopher Nolan has obviously gone on record saying that he is. But how can Saito wipe out a murder charge in the US? Even as an industrialist who is the second biggest energy conglomerate or company owner, CEO, how can you just fix a murder charge until the era of Trump where he's willing to give out pardons for parking tickets?
I was curious about that.
Well, should I let out some trade secrets?
You must.
It's really not that difficult. You just have to make sure that the motivations are right.
What?
People pursue charges not necessarily because of the morality or the altruistic view that they should be prosecuted. A lot of times charges are pursued for the political motives or for the self-interests of individuals. And so if you make sure that the interests are aligned properly, enough money, enough political influence, enough promises can make a lot of stuff go away.
Why do I feel like I need a shower now?
I know.
Okay, moving on.
Yes, I've spent 37 years of my life in the law and 37 years, and I have a very cynical view of what goes on, and I don't think I'm always sort of that wrong.
Moving on. How does Fisher not notice his number one competitor is in his dream after he wakes up?
He's groggy.
Or even on the plane to begin with.
Like, I can explain away that you often project really weird and random people into your dreams sometimes that you don't anticipate, people that you don't like or that you have rivalries with or any number of things. But the guy's there when you fall asleep and when you wake up, and he's been in your dream this whole time. That's somehow come to redefine your life. And you're supposedly trained or your subconscious has been trained to fight against interference. Okay. It's a nitpick. Am I going to sit too much on it? No, but this one is one that bothers me a little bit more just because they're clearly breaking their own rule. But since Saito spins the top in his dream or in the shared dream, and the whole point of having a totem is that only you can touch it so that you know what its actual weight and feel and everything else is, so you know what reality is and is not. Since Saito spins the top in the dream, how can Cobb now use that as a totem? Thus undercutting the final moments of the film where the top is spinning.
Yeah, I really wondered like if it was in dreams, does that come into factor, or is it just in reality that you can't touch each other's totems?
That might be the way to explain against it, but again, a nitpick.
Yeah.
And then finally, how do none of Cobb's friends or family blame him for Maul's death? He has a good relationship with both of his in-laws somehow while being charged with the murder of their daughter.
I think the grandma might not be bought into it because she did not want to talk to him on the phone.
Okay, but like none of his other conspirators or team like questions, did this guy really kill his wife? I mean, really? Not a single person thinks that he's maybe not all there. Questions that he maybe not be over it. I don't know.
I've already gone down the rabbit hole once. I need not go again.
Fair enough. Any remaining questions for either of you?
Yes. How does the fact that Fisher was trained in, I guess, dream defense not show up on whatever background check that they were doing? I feel like if there's one thing that they should know doing these checks on people is whether or not they've been trained in this.
Well, there's the movie version, which is if they had known about it and could have worked around it, it makes it too neat. You don't have as much conflict. There's no central thing that they're working in opposition against during the course of the film as an antagonist per se. Then there's the real version of it is, people make mistakes. People overlook stuff in the research all the time. Nothing as far as any one of these jobs ever goes exactly the way that you would plan. No trial ever goes the way that an attorney thinks it will go necessarily. There are always surprises that pop out when you least expect them. So it's the nature of doing work with other humans. But any other remaining questions?
Nope, not from me.
Mm-mm.
All right. With that, Walt, we want to thank you for being back with us again for your 6th time. Only 4 more to go for your t-shirt, but you will be back with us again in a few weeks for another difficult movie, The Usual Suspects. I'm sure we have nothing and no one specifically to talk about in that film.
Yeah.
But please remind everybody what you're working on and where they can find you.
Yes. I'm excited to come back to the show. Thank you all for welcoming me again. You can find me on all the platforms. I'm on a mission to not really become an overnight success, but just to continue to tell stories. I like to go to the people who are on the ground or people who've done very interesting things and share stories that can help other people, and also just create content that can bring something interesting, informative to people's life that they could use in their own journey. So you'll find all that on YouTube. The channel's Boss Locks Media. Find me all over the place, very heavily on LinkedIn, Walt again the second. And I'm going to soon make my return to Instagram, but I'm actually about to start experimenting with TikTok Live. So if you're on TikTok, follow me there. It's the Great Walt. And yeah, everywhere where there's the G Moat podcast, I will be there as well. Except I'm not really on Twitter. So, yep.
That's just fine. It's a cesspool anyway. We're there because we have to be.
Yeah.
Feel you. I feel like work might bring me there soon, but for now, I'm out.
Fair enough.
A lot of people don't realize how much hard work is involved in being an overnight success.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't have enough money to buy my way there, so.
You're just realistically a overnight success is the person who's met their tipping point.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not think of that by myself. That's a Malcolm Gladwell concept from many years ago, so I will not take credit.
And I'm realizing I never finished that book. I think I've read maybe 3/4 of it, but it's a good one.
So, Dad, remaining thoughts for the week.
You and I saw for your birthday F1. I really loved it. I thought the cinematography was fantastic. I mean, the story was a little predictable and whatever, but still,
It's a sports movie. I mean,
it was a fun film. Again, if I rate it on the 1 to 5 for artistic, it's going to be about, maybe a 3. But as far as a 1 to 5, as far as enjoyment or liking to watch it and having a good time with a box of popcorn, 4.5.
I mean, I went into it thinking that it would be Top Gun Maverick with cars. And to an element, like the way they shot it, the way they went about the production design and such, it kind of was. The only difference is the camera perspective. So instead of focusing and turning inward on the driver as it does with the pilots, like you can see Tom Cruise in the cockpit type of thing, and it constantly is flashing on him as to what his facial expressions are while he's flying the plane. In F1, we're reversing the camera feed so that it's more looking at what the driver is seeing as opposed to us seeing their reaction to what's going on. But it was still exciting for what they were doing in somewhat of an innovative way with putting you inside the cars and kind of giving you that perspective. And I thought there were some very good character actors in it. I have nothing bad to say about Damson Idris. I think I would disagree with anybody that thinks he's going to be necessarily a lead character, but there are a lot of great, successful actors who have been second fiddles for most of their career. I think Kerry Condon is, if anybody, the breakout performance in this movie, for me at least. And I thought, as usual, Javier Bardem is really good. And for about 70% of the movie, Brad Pitt's really good. When he's driving the car, when he's acting cocky, when he can kind of be a affable dickhead, he's really good in the movie. But the points where he has to be even slightly vulnerable, he cannot access that part of him anymore, and it fell flat for me. And then you get his uncomfortable, really awkward laugh, and it's like, this guy's a movie star? But oh well. Either way, I still had fun with it, even though it's in no way going to garner anything other than maybe visual effects for Oscar nominations. Any other remaining thoughts?
No, not for me.
Okay. We do continue to plug along on our James Bond prep, and that ranking series will be coming to you live again, promised by the end of the summer. It is the beginning of July, so we still have time. But the biggest thing is just getting Dana to sit down and watch anything these days that isn't TikTok. And now that I'm not at home anymore and can kind of force him into watching certain movies, he's going to have to do a lot of prep on his own. So I hope that he can let me know when he's ready and he's watched the last like 12 films. Most of these should go quicker after you get through the last 2 Timothy Dalton movies. Because then at least like the Pierce Brosnan ones, they know they're crap by the end of them and you can just kind of stomach it. And then you get to the Craig films, which I know you like.
Yes. The Timothy Dalton films are a lot like watching a toothpaste commercial.
Okay.
They're
Insightful.
very, very, very cheesy and very superficial.
Okay. I'm not sure why that's limited to toothpaste commercials, but sure.
That's just one of the potential options.
Fine. Okay. But as far as housekeeping goes, so Walt will be back with us in a couple of weeks. We do have a couple of upcoming films to talk about through the rest of the month, and we'll just kind of give you a rundown of what is to come here. To round out this month, we have Toy Story 3 next week. We have The Night of the Hunter coming up in a couple of weeks. We have The Usual Suspects with Walt, and then we have a revisit of The Social Network. So that's all coming before we get to our 275th episode, which we will be doing All Quiet on the Western Front, which I don't believe you've seen the original version, have you?
Me?
Yes.
No, I have not.
I know you watched the remake from a couple of years ago that got a lot of awards attention, but the
Yes.
original one that I think might be, it's at least in the conversation for greatest war film ever made.
Okay.
Excited to do that one. We will be having my little sister, Sarah, on for that one, who is the semi-military historian.
Who is not all quiet on the Western Front.
That is true. But frankly, quiet on a podcast doesn't really work either. So, But that looks like a good spot to end it for the week. That'll do it for us. Thank you for listening. So long, partner. Next week for our 271st episode, we welcome back author and podcaster Terry Bartley for one last lap around Andy's room with Toy Story 3 from 2010, also celebrating its 15th anniversary. Directed by Lee Unkrich, written by Michael Arndt, cinematography by Jeremy Lasky and Kim White, music by Randy Newman, starring Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, Joan Cusack, Don Rickles, Michael Keaton, Wallace Shawn, and John Ratzenberger. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have so that more can join in our fun. You can also email the show at RonnieDuncanStudios.com or at greatestaltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, or TikTok at the handle @GMOPodcast. The Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Ronnie Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed, edited, and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.